What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Nerd Informer podcast. We have a special guest tonight with us, James Annitto. He is a demonologist. So, James, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. So, I was going through your Facebook, and I see that you do demonology, which is I'm uber interested in. tell me what that's all about. How you get into that?
Well, yeah, so a demonologist is somebody that studies the cultural traditions and, of course, theology of wicked spirits. And I'm an applied demonologist, so I take the academic studies from the branch of theology and I apply it to real life cases and observe and diagnose and the mediator to a client and either or ordained person or a priest and or myself can handle it in lesser situations. But yeah, demonologist is somebody that logically studies the topic of demons or evil spirits. And uh, you know, there's in this field, there are many people that claim to be demonologists, and I'm not here to point fingers and say they're not or this or that. But it is a very long-term study. I believe that mentorship under people that are well respected or accredited in the sense of through the church. Um, are great mentors to have to learn this or to get a theology degree or to even get a degree in psychology, which of course I have a psychology degree and also have a theology background. But yeah, so I can talk a lot about demonology and what it is, what it isn't. But one thing I tell people is it's not a thrill ride. It's not heroism in the sense of you're the hero or stoic, untouchable. I am a person like anybody else, but I've just dedicated my life for the past 20 years learning this topic and um, diving deep into the world of the paranormal.
What made you first get into it?
Well, to paraphrase my life because my life has been a very hectic one with a lot of ups and downs and really what got me into demonology was the paranormal. I had a lot of questions in my early life
Okay.
about a god or higher power.
Yeah.
And I would like to say in my childhood I wasn't religious. I was a Darwinist. I loved biology and I was more scientific minded. So you could say I was agnostic as well. But so really, when I was young enough to have some kind of cognitive ability and understand literature and read, write, and all that fun stuff, I picked up a lot of books in my youth and really kind of heavily got involved into the debate of if God exists or not.
Okay.
And of course, with that umbrella, it opened up the doorways to aliens, cryptids,
Sure.
ghosts, spirits, demons, angels, and just I think the fascination of good and evil really entrapped me more than anything.
Yeah.
Um, but really, the full catapult to that was when I was first starting off the paranormal field and as an adult because I got involved in 14 and when I say got involved at 14 I actually have a legitimate backing to that like people that knew me still exist in this field today when I was that
Yeah.
young so but when I was an adult I ran my own group called Ghost Hunters to Supernatural Truth and one of the members that was a co-founder who's deceased now Andre Corrier worked with a demonologist named Carl Johnson, who is famously known now for being one of the first two investigators in the Conjuring House in Harrisville, Rhode Island. And I was, I want to say a fan, but I was intrigued in what he did because he appeared on the first two seasons of Ghost Hunters with his
Right.
twin brother Keith Johnson
Yeah.
and they're both from Rhode Island. And I actually had met Keith in Walmart. I was a department manager in electronics for Walmart and was picking his mind. But Andre introduced me to his brother, and at that time, Carl was looking for a tech manager for his group called Beyond the Veil Paranormal, who he was associated with Dina Palazzini at that time. And I had a very big tech background in my youth, so uh, he asked me to be tech manager, and that's really kind of the true marriage of me getting involved in demonology at that point because
That's awesome.
I asked him a lot of questions. I'm very inquisitive, so all I do is ask questions if I don't know the answers, or if I just want to generate more questions to the questions I already have. But yes,
Mhm.
I jumped on with him, and that was the start of the demonology.
Wow. So, do you have a relationship with the church now? I mean, do you have to have a relationship with the church at some capacity?
You would have to, I think.
You would think,
Yeah.
right?
So, um, in my youth, I served this short stint in the army, and when I got medically discharged out of the army, I went through a dark period of time. But in the army, I found my religion actually. I always tell the story every Sunday that I would go to church for the hour or two to get away from cleaning the barracks, and I'd go to all different kinds of services just to stow away from not cleaning because I
Sure.
hate cleaning. Who doesn't like cleaning?
Anything not to
And
clean.
I actually came across a church that kind of had this like awakening for me. It was very awkward, and I really hesitated to believe it, but there was a 180 in my life where I was doing in the pews. I was trying to get away from the drill sergeants from seeing me because they will smack you. They can't yell at you in service, but they will smack you. And so, but I was starting to nod away, and then the pastor said, "Who would like to get baptized today?" And all. I'm a funny person. I'm jokingly like try to make jokes and make people
Right.
laugh. That's just my life. I love laughter. I love love,
Sure.
and so but I'd rather not get wet and
Yeah.
sleep. So something jolted me, and I raised my hand suddenly. And as soon as I got baptized that day, I actually did a 180 split, and I started reading the Bible every day. Started praying before bed. And so when I got out of the military and got medically discharged, I actually signed up for um, a local church that was a Church of Christ and was a pastoral assistant. So I would help with service and all that stuff.
No.
And then eventually I was ordained through the Church of Christ. But much later, I actually converted to Catholicism and was associated, and I'm no longer a deacon, but I actually eventually joined the Old Catholic movement and then was ordained a deacon. So yeah, I did have church connections. As of right now, I'm not no longer part of a church. I'm a practicing Catholic. But my current predicament right now, or current situation, is that I work with a Roman Catholic priest called Father Bob Bailey. We run a deliverance group together called the Presidium Warriors of Saint Michael. He's our spiritual advisor, and I'm the director. And I help with his healing ministry called the Holy Apostolate. So I do work with a Roman Catholic priest at this point in time. So there goes, my connection to the church.
Sure. So, just to go back to, did you have paranormal experiences as a child? Like, is this where you found this? Like, is your connection with the ghost
No,
hunting part of it? No.
yeah, oddly enough, I have, there's maybe a few dozen people I've ever run into that have a very similar story to me. I think everybody uses the same story, and not in a bad context. I'm saying
Sure.
that, but they either have abilities, or they were in a haunted house. Maybe
Right.
a
Right.
lot of adolescent females, or elder adolescents, and a lot of energy was boosted. And I use energy, the word, loosely when it comes to this, but but for me, it was actually childhood trauma. I was adopted, and yeah, like I
Okay.
said, it was the question of God. Like when I got adopted, I was raised by a Lutheran family that would go to church every Sunday, and I'm hearing all this ideology
Hmm.
that didn't sit well with me, knowing that I'm not with my parents, and then of course my
Right.
adopted parents would say, this is why you're adopted, and it wasn't a great childhood, so to say,
Right.
but
Right.
Yeah.
that's really kind of what catapulted me into this field, or into the spectrum of the unknown, or as I like to call it, the preternatural.
Right. Yeah, I'm adopted myself, and I've always known, from no one's ever hit it from me.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of, how to ask it, led you to questions about like religion or God? Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, certainly, and that's the reason, because I knew that I was adopted, right? Of course, I was 4 years old when I got adopted, so I kind
Okay.
of knew who my parents were, right? So when I'm in the
Okay.
new home in this situation,
Yeah.
confused as I was, but like I said, my adopted parents told me throughout my childhood, this is what happened to you, and this is why you're here. But yeah, it was that circumstance that made me kind of rebel against a higher power idea.
Could see it.
Uh, um, but it also led me to where I am today, and where I have a faith now, and have studied many different cultures and religions. So I'm thankful for it. As much as it was tedious and traumatic,
Sure.
I'm thankful for what I went through, because it's made me the person that I am today.
Sure. So as when you do your you're doing paranormal investigations, I assume
Yep.
now, right? So is there, when you do these investigations, do you only go in if it's assumed that maybe it's a demon situation, or is that your main focus when you do these investigations?
My bread and butter is clientele, and diagnosing their situation, trying to figure out a cause and effect. But I'm very a critical analyzer,
Mhm.
very technical in the way I do things, so I don't jump to conclusions. I don't like to say I'm very gullible.
Okay.
So I approach clientele work as my bread and butter, but I do fundraising events for historical societies.
Mhm.
I
Awesome.
do things with groups as well if they invite me, or I'll just do normal paranormal investigation groups, investigations with groups at people's houses if they're not in danger. They're just
Right.
confused of what's going on. I'll do
Mhm.
those things. But yeah, my bread and butter is the people that are believe they're afflicted or are afflicted, and of
Hmm.
course, if they believe they're afflicted, there is a whole documentation process, and
Sure.
a lot of stuff that goes into kind of deciphering what they're dealing with, if anything at all, to be honest with you. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, it is mental health or mental illness. But
Sure.
there's also, I think, another spectrum of it as well. I am a part of a parapsychology group, like a legitimate parapsychology group out of New England and Canada. They're a nonprofit led by two
Mhm.
doctors of social science. So I do look in the spectrum of parapsychology as well. That I think the mind is capable of things that we don't understand or fathom at this point in time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think there is also kind of a piece to that puzzle as well. But there's many theories in this field, and there's none that are fact or empirical. So I am a person that varies on many different theories, and I feel like each theory is a tool to understanding something, but
Okay.
it melds together. But when I say that I try to figure out a cause and effect of something, that doesn't mean when I figure out what the cause is or what the effect is, that is it's factual. Sometimes
Yeah.
that I feel, or who I'm working with feels, that this could be the common denominator to their situation,
Yeah.
and we work on it. And most of the time it works, and there's sometimes it's failed, but that's also counterintuitive as well, by the basis that it's also based upon the person you're working with. If they can't, as I say, an analogy, that I'm the crutch for these people, and when I pull away, they got to learn how to walk again. And if they
Mhm.
fall back on their bottom, or they can't walk, they go back into their old habits, and things start happening again.
Sure.
Okay.
So you think
As
it's
it as
something?
Go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead. Ty.
I was just saying, as in you're just leading them how to approach the situation when it happens and how they can handle it on them by themselves.
Well, yes and no. Like, of course, I'll do certain rituals, like a crossing over, or a blessing over their house, or deliverance, or minor rite of exorcism. I'm not an exorcist, so I don't do the solemn rite. And the priest I work with is not an exorcist as well. But I do rituals, and they do tend to work. But I
Okay.
also feel like it also has something to do with faith. If I do
Yeah.
this on somebody and they don't have faith, yeah, it could work in the sense of a placebo effect, but it doesn't reinforce if they don't have faith. Because one thing I could tell you about faith and neuroscience and a sector of it called neurotheology, does believe that when people think of faith, there's actually a part of your brain that fires off
Yeah.
when we're thinking of faith. So that just tells you by our physical makeup that faith, regardless of what it is important.
Yeah.
So you need to have them firing off in the same cylinders as you. So I do rituals, or work with people that do rituals, and it does work.
Okay.
But sometimes it is just guidance, because at the end of the day, it's, you can do something and it doesn't work, but sometimes you realize it doesn't work because they're not able to take command of their life and move on from their past traumas, or the circumstances
And
that
that's
they
what they
dealt
feed
with.
off of, pretty much. As
Oh
in,
yeah, especially malignant forces such as
yeah.
a demonic or even negative spirits. They definitely feed off of that, because fear is not is not a good emotion, right? So if we have fear, and that's a traditional thing too. Like if we have our own fears of our goals,
Mhm.
we're not going to accomplish a goal if we have fear of accomplishing that goal. When we believe in that goal and we know we can do that goal, then we're likely going to accomplish that goal. So you
Yeah.
can look at it in that ramification of personal significance to the us, as well as the paranormal significance of it.
Okay.
So you
That makes
think that you can will, I don't know if that's the right word, but if they prey essentially on weakness, can you just train someone to basically will it away by encouraging them, be strong, be confident, you know, that type of thing? Like, is it something that they can do with their mind that will make them less susceptible to any kind of negative entities?
Well, yeah, it's the power of mind and faith, right? It's also, I do believe in God now, regardless of what people think. That's for to each their own. But
Mhm.
I've seen too many things in my life and things that personally have happened to me to denote it now, to realize that it doesn't exist. But
Sure.
so yes, I do empower their minds, because I do think that if we have a feeble mind, in the sense that we're either conflicted in the sense of depressed or anxious or with anxiety, or have trauma, and we're still living in the past or living too far in the future, then I feel like training those people to live in the present and dealing with the present and dealing with certain trials and tribulations the right way will help these people overcome these things, but also empowering them to pray or doing healthy and important things in their life that will, of course, allow them to shake off the negative.
Okay.
Because I could do prayers and deliverance over somebody, but if like I said, if they fall back into their ways, this thing could, whatever it was, either if it was an artificial intelligence in the sense of the metaphysical term, or a true demonic being, or
Yeah.
even a negative spirit, it could latch back on, because for like demonics, they're predators, right? And what a predator will do is a prey might escape, but if it just only goes a few certain feet, that predator is probably going to pounce again.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to have them give them the ability to, if this happens, how you can shrug it off and fight it positively. Because what happens is a lot of people in their houses, when they're dealing with certain things, they deal with it in a negative reinforcement, like
Okay. Yeah.
either calling it out or provocating,
Right.
or talking to it. And at the end of the day, it's like if I answer my door and I feel uncomfortable about answering my door, but I answer my door and then open it, and then somebody kidnaps me, or comes in my house and robs me or shoots me, you're opening that door, and so to
Yeah.
say. So you have to be careful on how you react
Hmm.
to the antagonizers that are demons or negative spirits, or even something metaphysical as an artificial intelligence or a tulpa or a poltergeist. Many different terminologies for it. But yeah, you have to, training that person is key. But you also have to, they also have to take over the torch
Sure.
after they take it away from you, as if that makes
It
any complete
makes a
sense.
lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
sense. Have you ever thought about we did a guy we had an interview with a guy that was a hypnotist. And so, have you ever thought about like not hypnotizing someone to think something different, but just try to get rid of fear and turn it into kind of like bravery in a way? Like they could, not saying that I don't know if it works. I've never been hypnotized, but for people that do it, I wonder if they could go that route to have that shield in a way where they can try to take that fear away when something like that happens.
That is an interesting theory because, you know, I've never used hypnotist or certified hypnotist
Yeah.
in any of my cases. Like some people have said, well, after dealing with an affliction, because in demonic possession, the person doesn't remember what's going on.
Mhm.
Their consciousness is basically mute, and they don't remember anything once they come to their body.
Okay.
So some people have said, well, I should go see a hypnotist to remember those thoughts. And I'm like, you really shouldn't, because at the end of the day, right, you're going to remember things that were traumatic, and
Right.
that might bring something
Yeah,
back
you're
into
right.
your mind
Open the
and your
door,
heart.
sure.
Yeah, open the door. But as far as like in the positive and benign sense, right,
Yeah.
using a hypnotist to escape fear or like an addiction or something like that, you know,
Yeah.
people do that every day, right?
Yep.
Those are certain things for people that have addictions. People see hypnotists, and you know, I don't know what the success rate is. I'm a statistical person, never looked at those statistics,
Right.
but you know, I'm pretty sure there is a margin that,
Mhm.
you know, people have had success from getting or kicking negative
Yeah.
things in their life by seeing a hypnotist. But you also can go to a therapist and do CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and
Yeah.
there's all of the other different kinds of therapies you can do too as well that does the same thing,
Hmm.
but might not be as snap of a finger as maybe a hypnotist. But I also think you have to be a kind of certain mind. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I've never been hypnotized before, but you know, I don't know if I could, because, like I said, I'm not a very imaginative and gullible
I
person.
wonder if those would go hand in hand with, I don't want to say a weak mind, but somebody that you could hypnotize, you would think maybe doesn't, maybe, I
I
guess you could say a weaker mind, maybe. So that would go hand in hand with somebody that would be able to invite, these entities,
I I
in more.
I think it would have to be someone that just, yeah, like you said, like it's almost like a weak mind, but I think they would try anything just to have
Mhm.
that. So
Maybe.
they would
Yeah.
want to believe it as much as they're being
Yeah,
hypnotized.
that sense of relief. You know,
Yeah.
Sure.
anytime that you have that sense of relief, sometimes it can work. You know.
Especially with those
So
situations happening, they'll do anything to try to get out of that.
yeah,
So,
trust me, I deal with clients that, and I'm not saying anything bad about Reiki or mediums or psychics. You know, I
yeah.
have my love hate relationship with psychic and mediums. I have good friends that I do believe they're authentic, and then I also know people that are full of baloney,
Sure.
unfortunately. But
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, you know, I've had clients that have eventually called me in after spending $50,000 or
Jeez.
thousands of dollars getting their cords cut, and they're still
Yeah.
dealing with this, but they're still giving up that money because, you know, they're in such a bad,
Psychologically, they're,
Yeah.
yeah.
psychologically in a bad
Yeah.
place, and they think that by faltering to this person that
Yeah.
they're actually going to help them. And what I do is free of charge, man. I've traveled the country free of charge. I don't ask for money. So anything I do, I'm a breath of fresh air to these people,
Sure.
because
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
you know,
Well, you're
the
not
common
using them.
yeah, the common
So
question is, how much are you? And I say I'm free. You know, like, I don't
Yeah.
do this for monetary reasons. I have a career that puts a roof over my head. If I needed to do this for monetary gain, then I'm doing it for the wrong reason.
yeah,
100%.
that's a
Yeah.
good way to look at it. So
So what advice do you give people initially when they say, "Hey, I think I have a poltergeist or a demon or an entity"? What should they do short of having you show up?
Well, you know, they should look at what their livelihood is like. You know, is there internal strife in their family? Do they argue all the time? How they are
Hmm.
reacting to certain things?
mhm.
Are they, like I said, reacting negatively and provoking this thing, or saying, "Get the hell out of my house. This is my house," kind of thing. You know, so I try to coach them that, you know, paying mind to this thing is just going to energize it. I always use the analogy: if I put a battery in a toy and I press the button, it's just going to say womp 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 womp. You know,
Sure.
if
Yeah.
but if I pull the battery out, it's not going to be energized anymore. So, you know, and that actually goes all the way back to Charles Dickens, who was a paranormal investigator with the Ghost Club, and he wrote a pamphlet called Haunted House, the first and ending chapter of the pamphlet, and he said the exact same thing: we're the energizer to a haunted house. house can't be haunted unless we're haunted. So,
Sure.
so I give these little tools and necessary feedbacks to kind of articulate the reasons that they shouldn't do certain things. And then, of course, I do a questionnaire and I ask what medications they're on, how long they've been dealing with this. So I take a lot of this data from talking to them from this questionnaire, and I try to compile it to an understanding of what I'm getting involved in. But really, you authentically, in my opinion, can't determine what something is until you're physically there,
Yeah.
because you don't know how they live. You don't know if they're hoarders. You don't know if
Yeah.
they're addicts. You don't know if they lie about what certain medications they're on, or their family dynamic, which you usually can tell if you're good at identifying people.
Yeah.
So physically getting involved is the true determining factor to where I lean towards certain things. And sometimes it's not in one day.
Mhm.
It might be if they're local and in my tri-state area, so to say, I'll have to go there multiple times. But if it's far of a distance and it's coming out of my own pocket, it's kind of has to be a quick and
Yeah.
painless affair, right?
Yeah.
So, I try to give them relief as best as I can. And then when I leave, I continue giving them guidance if they need it. But there's sometimes I just disconnect from them because I feel like if I'm their crutch for too long, they're gonna rely on me too much
Sure.
and not take over their life as
Yeah.
well.
Have you ever had it where you've gone into a place like that thinking it wasn't going to be as bad and it was actually just, I mean, it was severe and you needed someone else to help you?
Yeah. So there was a. This is actually how I met Father Bob over 10 years ago. We were working a case in Cumberland, Rhode Island, and it was actually on an episode of my ghost story. They actually caught very pretty authentic evidence of like the 7 foot shadow figure
Mhm.
walking past the door and then looking back, knowing that the camera was there, kind of mocking these people. And of course, okay, it's a shadow person. Somebody died that was very tall in the house, but going there, the place felt off. The
Okay.
homeowner seemed authentic of to their experiences. They were telling the same story over and over again without any little detail changes.
Hmm.
And they kept to their story. So, I brought Father Bob in because I thought, okay, well, this could be something a lot worse than I expect it to be. And when
Sure.
Father Bob came, we were all sitting at the table, and wearing our rosaries, and the rosary severed down to my lap, and they
Wow.
were
Wow.
defunct. So, certain things like that happen in that case. But yeah, I'm not afraid to call people in if I feel like that I need assistance.
Yeah.
On top of it, even if I don't feel like I need assistance and I feel like I can handle it, taking
Hmm.
out the ego in it, sometimes I still like working and learning from different people too. I
Sure.
think it's important. My life lesson to myself every day is learn something new
Learn some
before I go
sure.
to
Yeah.
bed. So if I can work with somebody new, then I will do so, and I can learn what they're doing, and they can learn what I'm doing. We can learn from each other.
So this might be a kind of a broad question, but once you're there, and you can't maybe answer it a little bit, but once you're there, how do you decide, okay, this is a demon that I need to take action with, or maybe it's maybe something lesser and you're dealing with a little bit of mental instability. Like, how do you make that decision to go, okay, I got to go all in and we really got to take care of this thing because this thing is bad? Is there one thing that happens that you're like, oh shit, it's, this is going to be bad?
Well, of course, a lot of the questionnaire process gets through kind of the red flags. Like, if they're claiming they're possessed, for me to deal with them, they have to get a psychological evaluation and a physical
Okay.
evaluation by the
Okay.
primary care. So I won't get involved if they claim they're being possessed without those documentations are required, because I want to make sure that I'm not, if they're schizophrenic or
Hmm.
bipolar and a manic
Yeah. Yeah.
episode, I'm not feeding into their reality
Sure.
and
Yeah.
forcing it. So, but what I always say with people that contact me depends on the level of haunting, because one thing about a demonic haunting, and not all the time, some people will say that from the get-go it's full-fledged, up your face, and being relentless. But a lot of the times in demonic cases, it actually starts off very slow and kind of intimate in the sense that it appears as a lost loved one or a child or an old person, just kind of let your guard down, kind of as a deception tool.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I look at a lot of these things like, did
Okay.
it start off slowly, and then once they gave it attention, did it ramp up? And I'm not. I don't claim to be clairsentient, clairaudient, clairvoyant, medium, or psychic. I don't like those labels connected
Yeah.
to me. But one thing that I do believe I have is the gift of discernment. So a lot of the times when I am there, um, I know if people are telling the truth or lying or not.
Yeah.
Because there's a gut feeling that I get, and
Yeah.
usually every time I've never followed it, it's bit me in the ass. And but usually when I get there, there will be like barometric pressure change in that house suddenly as soon as you walk through it. It's murky. It feels very icky.
Heavy.
Yeah, very heavy. So those are some also calling signs that I look forward to as well, to kind of start leaning towards certain avenues. And it's not. I haven't had many demonic cases as a demonologist. Like, you would think that I'd have like thousands of cases that I
Right.
would quantify as demonic. But to be honest, 1% of my cases I could qualify as demonic. So, 1% is probably, if I had to give you a number, 5 cases out of my whole caseload
Oh
Okay.
that
wow.
I could
Okay.
quantify as demonic, or something close enough to be leaning towards that direction. And I've dealt with lesser things that can mimic that. But once again, I think it's how you look at it, how you diagnose through the process, and then of course your determination when you're there. But I usually try not to jump to that conclusion, even
Okay.
my first visit, because you know. The thing about spirits or the preternatural is it is unknown, right? So I'm not all knowing in the sense,
Yeah.
but there's certain signs you can look for. If you do open that line of communication, certain questions such as using religious provocation, that might allow them to say something in return. They're a diversion to religious iconography, if certain people are affected, or if the house is definitely being afflicted by something greater, like an incarnate evil.
Hmm.
Religious iconography will have effects on the household, such as maybe things moving or happening. So there's a lot of things that you can do to determine that, but to realize what it is, it takes a lot of diagnosis, and sometimes you can understand the effect, but to find what the cause is the hardest,
Yeah.
right? Why are these
Hmm.
people dealing with that? But I do have a theory, and based on those cases that I dealt with, every single one of those people had trauma in their life, and they were
Right.
dealing with this. So it was an easy entryway for something
Sure.
like this to be involved in their life, because they contorted and twisted their trauma and use it against them to disempower them, to
Hmm.
affect them or affect their family.
So just a normal, let's say you go on just a normal investigation, it's a normal haunting, just a I don't know, dead relative or something hanging around. Do you take action in those cases, or do you just tell the people, listen, it's your grandmother and she's cool, or is it, you know, do you take action to get rid of them?
Well, no, I don't get rid of. So what I don't like about when people say they're crossing over people, like when you have an intelligent spirit,
Hmm.
it's like telling me to go. Like if we're in a predicament and you tell me to go, I have enough free will to say hell no, I'm not leaving.
Yeah, yeah,
To
Yeah.
force me out of here, right? So I can't tell something that's intelligent as what we think it would be in theory, that you need to go, or I'm going to force you out. And yeah, you could force them out with a liturgious amount of prayer and going back and back. But with a lost loved one, a lot of the times if there's a lost soul there, it's because they have a message or a story to
mhm,
tell. And if you once you offer a crossing over, and you tell them that they are forgiven and they don't need to be here anymore, that is up for them to want to move forward to the light.
Yeah.
If
Right.
you want to use that as a terminal, kind of like a essence
I see what
of
you're saying.
so it's I offer the crossing over, and of course if the person wants, I will bless their house as well. But then that is really up to determination of the client. I always feel like a blessing's good, but you know I don't force things out unless they of course are evil or malignant. But it's not even me forcing these things out. I do believe I work as a conduit. It's
Hmm.
not my power that's forcing
Yeah.
these things out, because I'm just a meat body. I'm just a lesser being.
Yeah.
So it's not my power that's pushing these things out. It's the guidance of a higher power that will either guide these things to wherever they must go, or to back wherever they came from if they are malignant. And that's all questionable. There's a lot of theology to say where they go or how it should happen,
Yeah.
but theology, as I like to say, has been debated for thousands of years. So there's
Yeah.
still a lot of unknown variables to that as well. But you can offer, and too funny to ask to say about a grandmother. I actually worked on a case that I was brought in because a lot of negative things were happening, and it was later to be determined that, in my opinion and other people's opinions that I brought upon, that it was the grandmother and it was her house. He lived in the basement, she lived upstairs, and when she died, he took over the whole house, and little things were happening, but he freaked out and was swearing up a storm, saying, "Get the hell out of my house! You don't belong here!" And things started increasing
Yeah.
because if what we could essentially thought was the grandmother, if I swore at my grandmother, she'd
Yeah.
pinch my cheek and hit me with a broom
Yeah. Yep.
physically, right?
Exactly.
So like I do believe it was the grandmother, because once he stopped the provocation
Mhm.
and lived peacefully and harmoniously in that household, all the activity stopped.
Okay. I can see that.
So that's actually a funny point. You brought up the grandmother. You must be
Yes.
psychic.
I
Have
knew
you-
it. I've been trying to tell Tyler this forever. No one ever listens to me.
Have you ever had a time where you've gone into something like that and let's just say it was demonic and you brought like it came back with you, where you felt the effects of maybe being sick, or you feel that after leaving?
So there's only been two times in my life that I could say, outside of the client's home or their premise, that I've been affected. One was an attachment by a negative spirit.
Okay.
And that was because of my ego. I was earlier in my time doing this, and I had gotten through a lot of cases that weren't necessarily demonic, but were
Yeah.
negative or helping people. So I thought I was the king shit, and my
Yeah.
s- my my poop didn't smell, and so I went in that house with that mentality, and I definitely dealt with an attachment, but I didn't jump to that conclusion right away, because
Okay.
um I like I said, I'm not imaginative and gullible. Like, I don't think everything's the paranormal at all. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's a small spectrum on the scale that it is, and a lot of other things that are natural that we can't explain to this day in normal science. We think it's paranormal. So I was like, my life's just going to crap. And it really was, right? I lost my job. My girlfriend left me. I went
Yeah.
from having money in the account from being negative in the account. So I got in a car accident, lost my car. So
Oh
it's like
man.
every little thing happened to me like a domino effect. But
Yeah.
being in the field, I work with a lot of people that claim to have abilities, and a lot of them didn't know each other, but they would send me a message. I feel like this thing's lashing on your shoulder. It's affecting you. And like the first couple people, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not. All right,
Yeah.
I'm just going through a dark time. You must be
Yeah.
feeling that.
Everybody does it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then by the 10th time, of like all different people that some of them didn't know each other at all, I kind of actually then realized, okay, I probably do have an attachment, because my life is just going to crap. I realized kind of what I did wrong in that case by being stoic and puffing my chest out.
Yeah.
And the oddest thing happened once I kind of had that realization.
A humbled feeling.
No, the humble feeling, but that same day that I had that humble feeling, the client started having activity again. Like that whole time frame, there was no activity at this person's
Oh, wow.
house. And once I had that realization, the client called me, started things started happening again, and it was like that was when the light bulb went off. Okay, like it makes total sense. It
Yeah.
went with me, didn't stay with them
Yeah.
Yeah.
because of my own ego, and it realized I was in a place where it could affect me more and that it can contort me, and it thought it was much stronger and doing it to the person that I am. But I went back, I got a deliverance, and I went back there with a different mindset, and we helped them. That's one. A second time was demonic. I do believe it was demonic infestation. It was a family of five, three kids, a mom and a dad, or husband and wife, however you want to look at it as. This is when I realize demons can affect you from a distance. And I tell this story quite often to podcast or my lectures because I think it really cements that the work that I do is very dangerous and it's not meant for everybody.
Yeah.
I got off the phone with the client basically saying, okay, well, if there's children involved, I quick pace it because, I don't know how the parents are involving their children.
Yeah.
Are they affecting them psychologically, saying, "Oh, there's a demon in this house"?
Yeah.
So when there's kids involved, I really fast pace it. I make it a fire drill because I don't want the kids to always be screwed
Sure.
up the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had set a week later because I traditionally do a lot of things on the weekend because I work Monday through Friday. So I said, okay, next Saturday I'll be there. That night, I don't really traditionally dream because once again, like I said, I'm not imaginative or gullible. So a lot of people that are imaginative actually dream, and I don't dream most of the time in my life. And I had a very interesting nightmare. So, um, mind you, I never seen their house or the surroundings. I seen like little pictures of scratches on their bodies, but never really saw their faces or the kids' faces or what they looked like to certain dimples or freckles. So in my nightmare, I'm driving with my team. We get to this house. I see the surroundings. I see the house. The family greets me. I walk in, I do my walkthrough like would traditionally do. I look through every room, see how they live, ask them questions. And instead of helping them in my nightmare, I actually killed every single one of them like a Saw movie. I
Oh my
butchered
God.
them,
Jesus.
right? But the scary thing about that nightmare is that's it almost um diluted me in the sense that I didn't want to go because it kind of did
Yeah.
frighten me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Sure.
I'm too stupid to take a message like that and run from
Right.
it. So, um, what was frightening though more so than anything is when I got to the house, the surroundings were the same. The house had the same color, same
Wow.
siding. When I walked in, the same furniture. What's even crazier, they were wearing the same damn clothes they were wearing in the
Wow.
nightmare,
Oh,
same
wow.
hairstyle, same furniture inside. The only difference is I didn't kill them because I would be in prison right now. But that just shows you that the demonic, when they are present and they know that you are coming, they
Yeah.
will do everything in their power to divert you from helping these people. And it definitely attempted, in my opinion, it did. And that really was very eye opening to me. Only other time it's ever happened, to be honest with you. But um, it was definitely eye opening and really kind of realized that you have to be on guard at all times. You have to try to live a peaceful life. I've made mistakes as a human, but when I make a mistake, I always try my best to recover from it and
Sure.
realize my mistake and learn from it.
It's a lesson.
Yeah. So, that really just made me realize that, from any distance, you could be affected, and I do believe I was affected in my nightmare.
Do you think that having a dream like that and then going to the same house, was it you having a dream of you being possessed or taking over to do those things?
Yeah, I think that's what the nightmare was showing me. Traditionally, I wouldn't cut
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
Dexter, right? I'm not Dexter at all. So so yeah, I think that what it was showing me is that, you know, you come here, I'm going to take you over, and I'm going to
That's
make
what
you
I
do
would be
these
worried about. Yeah.
make these hand. Yeah, of course, that thought was there for a second, but when you're rolling up, you kind of, you know, what I always say to people is when you get involved in those kind of situations, you have to leave your life outside of that
Yeah.
house, and you have to leave your fears outside of that house, and you have to step in there with a different mentality. And like
Yeah,
I
oh,
said,
yeah.
I'm a very funny person, so when I get there, you know, I have a demeanor that I'm going to make people laugh. I'm not going
Yeah.
to say anything
Lighten
unprofessional,
lighten the
but
mood. Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to lighten the mood. So, you know, I had, you know, when I pulled up, and I kind of had like this frightening moment seeing these people come out of the house and the surroundings, you know, I was hesitant, but then I realized, I was like, you know, I had to snap out of it and realize I'm here. And if I have these fears, if I have this emotion,
Mhm.
then this could happen. And, you know, thanks be to God, in my opinion, that it didn't happen, and I was able to collect myself and, you know, help that family. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they called me one time after that with a little bit of things happening, but then I gave them guidance over the phone, and then after that, nothing else happened, and they live, as far as I know, knock on wood, still peaceful to this day.
Awesome.
Have you
Yes.
ever had any kind of physical injury, like a scratch or anything like that, that you can point to as something from a paranormal event?
No, so I, beside the attachment and that nightmare, I've never been physically assaulted. I've never had scratches. You know, maybe one or two times you could say that I was pushed, but of course, you know, a lot of these old houses are very uneven, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, you're very tired, so you have to kind of jump to where was that I tired? Was I not
yeah.
fully there consciously because
Yeah.
I'm exhausted, or is it uneven floors? So I've never have, but I have seen scratches appear out of nowhere. We had a client that there was something negative there, and I was there with my team, and we always record a session, you know, not visually but audibly.
Hmm.
And I had my investigator, my medium, and another investigator, and my investigator to the left of me, Tom, was looking at the surroundings because I'm looking at the client, interviewing them. So I want to see eye to eye. I want to have eye contact, just to make sure that they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And so Tom said to me, James, there's a scratch appearing on his leg. And I looked at his leg. He's wearing shorts. You just see this one scratch appearing, going
Wow.
all the way
No
up,
shit.
basically to his knee from his ankle. And it manifested out of nowhere. There was another time I saw a scratch. It was just a traditional investigation. It was an event. I do a lot of events. And we were at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Awesome place. And my friend Sean, who's a really cool dude, and my friend Keith, we were walking, and I'm on the side of Keith, Sean's in front of us, and we would have seen him scratch himself, but all of a sudden we see uh I think it was two or three scratches. It wasn't one, two or three scratches start to appear on his neck and go up to the to the base of his skull, and that appeared out of nowhere. But yeah, I've seen anomalies like that. Um, I've also believe I've seen, you know, people call them orbs. I hate the word orb, but I believe I've seen a whisper to in my life as well.
Uh-huh.
You know, embodiment of energy
Hmm.
Yeah.
that can't fully manifest. I call them wisp orbs, or have a bad nomenclature to it. But you know, I have seen things, but nothing, thankfully, has ever happened to me
Oh, that's good.
physically.
Yeah. See, I think that would be my thing. Like, I think if I got scratched, it would probably make me angry. Just because. I mean, I don't know what
You
you do
can't
about it, I
explain
guess,
it or
but
where it came from.
yeah, and like I think it would change the way I think about everything because if I if I went into an investigation and I'm kind of skeptical about everything, you know,
It's good.
whether it's aliens, ghosts, all that stuff. I just love the topic of it, and I want to believe because I want to believe in ghosts because when I die, I hope I go somewhere other than in the ground.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if the ghosts are around, at least I have somewhere to go, and I know there's something after this. That's the only thing I'm holding on for. So, but I think that it would make me question, you know, religion just in the sense that okay, well, I got scratched, and I see people on TV get scratched, and I see all these other investigation stuff get scratched. Like maybe that's real, So maybe the whole, I think it would change my perspective on religion in the sense that if
Yeah.
all that's real, then you have to invoke Jesus or God or some sort of religion to get rid of some of these things.
Yep.
Like that would have to be real too. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you could call me a cynic when I was younger, because I was really like rebellious against the whole idea of it. But
mhm.
so like I said, a lot of these things that have come into my life or have happened to me made me a believer, and I'm still skeptical. Don't get me wrong. I'm like Humpty Dumpty on that wall.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Um, but yeah, no, and one thing I want to add about scratches too, which is what's primarily seen on television. A lot of scratches are negative, and why I say that is, there is a difference between a human, a disembodied spirit, earthbound
Mhm.
spirit scratching you, and then a demonic scratch. A demonic scratch would be like three razor blades
Yeah,
cutting
yeah.
you,
Yeah.
and while a human scratch will actually have the inflammation, like if you scratched yourself right now, you'd have
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
inflammation build up around it and a different kind of scratch. But what I always tell people that it's not always negative, because if there is that something that does exist, and if it is on another level, if it's a certain particle, even though most physicists will say that the Higgs would have detected ghosts a long time ago, and a lot of physicists will denounce spirits and ghosts because of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
But if they are some sort of particle and they manifest based upon us energizing them through thought or belief or our imagination, you know w- logically, if you look at ITC research, which has come a long way, and there's people like Ron Yacovetti that's doing amazing work on advancing it and making me believe in it more, is that they in theory speak at a different range than what we can hear. So
Sure.
sometimes if we don't have these devices, or we aren't clairaudient, or somebody that has abilities, when if they're trying to say something, we're not going to hear it, right?
Yeah.
Or if they don't have enough energy, and I use that word loosely because that's just the word that's thrown around a lot and
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
utilized. I can't think of an actual better word at this point until we find something. But
It's a form of communication.
yeah. So it's a form of
Yeah.
communication. They scratch
Sure.
you to get your attention because
Right.
that's the best thing they can do. But it's not all the time. It
Right.
can
Right.
be negative, but that's when you get scratched, how you go from that moment will determine what it could be, and how you question it, and how you
Negatively or positively.
yeah, and what it could be. Does it have a story, or is it really something trying to affect you because it's pissed off at you, or is it
Right.
something evil? But so yeah, you have to definitely analyze it, and of
Sure.
course, the television shows unfortunately don't do that because they throw it right in your face
Yeah.
that
It's
it's
Yeah.
evil.
It's exploited. Like,
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, exploited. And that's what I say too. Is like in cinema right now, or even on TV, it's evil.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Evil is what sells.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
before
the
that,
only
it
way
was
they ever put it.
yeah.
So
Before that, it was thrillers or slashers, and then before that
Mhm.
was like sexism and all that stuff. But now in our day and time, evil
Mhm.
sells.
yep.
Look at the movie Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
to me, a good movie on the concept of what they were
Yeah.
Sure.
doing.
Oh
You
yeah.
know. But of course, what the spin of that was. It was
Mhm.
evil, and you follow the movies. It was a witch coven that
Yeah.
Yeah.
blah blah blah. Insidious, which is one of my favorite movies, somehow went from astral projection to there being a demon
Love
in
that
the
movie. Yeah.
astral plane. So,
Yeah.
all these movies have that concept because, people are scared, but, it also brings in big bucks.
Oh
Sure.
yeah.
So getting back to demons just for a second, are there different levels of when you talk about a demon? How do you know what you're up against? Is there different levels? Are there ones that are like, oh shit, I don't want to mess with that one? Yeah, have you ever ran into anything you haven't been able to fix or take care of?
Not necessarily. Thankfully, knock on wood, every case that I've dealt with had some sort of good outcome to it.
Resolution, sure.
Um, But if you look at theology or angiology, then demonology, which is actually a branch off of angiology, it's not a direct line to theology. They are, if you look at the Christian aspect of it, of being fallen angels in the Christian sense, because we are Western civilization, and that is the most common faith and religion in the United States or North America, even and in South America. Um, if you look at it as the concept of fallen angels, they did fall from God, and
Mhm.
Hmm.
um, the angels do have a hierarchy. So in a lot of demonology lore and a lot of books, especially the older ones like
Mhm.
Demonology by King James, or Mallefice Maleficarum, which was by the Dutch physician who was also a demonologist in like the late 1600s or late 1400s. Actually, no, it was late 1400s, because demonology was late 1500s, so like 1593. But a lot of the early tomes, even Dante's Inferno,
Mhm.
Yeah.
talked about a hierarchy of hell, and of course its masters. So there is thought that there are different levels, higher beings and lower beings. Some would say the lower beings are devils, or devilish creatures, while
One
the
you hear a
higher,
lot about is like Beelzebub. Like you hear that a lot. And
yeah, it's the Lord of the Flies, and
okay,
some belief that Beelzebub is actually as well Lucifer.
right.
It's another different name for Lucifer.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different conversation about if there's a hierarchy. I do think that there are lower and higher vibrations when it comes to evil.
Okay.
So I do feel like that is quite possible. As far as like me coming into like the Goetta based demons, like the top 12 or whatever. I never have come across a demonic entity that gave me their name. A lot of people will get these names, but the one thing I have a problem with is a demon won't give their name up unless it's forced, right, through a solemn rite of exorcism or
Yeah.
any other exorcism
Mhm.
ritual through Hinduism, because even Hinduism, which is the oldest modern day religion over
Sure.
5,000 years ago,
Yep.
had the oldest form of exorcisms, and their demons are called Azoras, and it's the same kind of characteristics and form as what fallen angels are. So they have the same ability to remove them, but most of those spirits won't give their name out willy-nilly, because
Yeah.
once you know who they are, it's
You
easier
can
to
control
dispel
the
your enemy.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like Sun Tzu, the art of war, right? Knowing your
Mhm.
Yeah.
enemy will win you the
Sure.
war, but if you do not know your enemy, then you will likely lose the war. So it's in that same methodology, right? They don't easily give up their names. There's a lot of people on YouTube and the shows that, oh, we got Beelzebub or Azael or all this. A lot of the times it is an intelligent spirit, or even, of course, production. But if I
Yeah.
had to say it without the production value, once again, using the word intelligent spirit, they know how to provoke fear out of you, because
Yeah.
as a being of body right now, if I wanted to scare you, one of you guys, I don't know how easy to scare you guys. I'm just using as a means, but I could easily scare you and say, "Hey, your house is burning down." Like, and you might say, "Oh,
Right.
really? Is it?" So, like, of course, an intelligent spirit will, if they are trying to instill fear, will try to use certain terminology or certain names to
Sure. Okay.
throw you off
Yeah.
kind of their tail, and still kind of be deceptive as well. But so yeah, loose based answer to that question, but it's hard because I don't really logically know if there's a hierarchy. There's a lot
Yeah.
of smart people that before me have said that there were, and
Yeah.
still believe to this day there is. So I'd have to quit. I'd have to stand by those very smart people that have
Right.
studied it longer than I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe it, and agree to not disagree, but agree to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Makes sense.
Wow. So have you ever actually known anybody that got injured by a demon to the point, like seriously injured by a demon? Like forget
Um,
scratches. I'm talking about like shoved
Like,
down flights of stairs and
well,
broken
that or
bones.
you
so
know,
I've heard stories. Nobody really in my inner circle, so to say. I knew a guy, Bill. He's no longer with us. He passed away due to lung cancer. But he used to tell me stories of him being pushed, bones broken.
oh, wow.
But nobody really in my tight inner circle that I really would lean on more towards anything really have had anything severe like that happen. Some scratches or feelings or being sick to
Sure.
their stomach or headaches or stuff like that. Carl used to tell a story about a time that he was in a case where the woman started pulling her hair out because she got
Wow.
affected, and
Mhm.
so yeah, I have not personally seen it, but I have people that I've worked with or
Heard the stories.
respect that have dealt with that as well. A lot of people will say if you've ever seen the movie Hostage to the Devil, which was based on Father Malachi Martin's life. Directed by Marty Fried. A lot of people will say that he was in the work for so long, and the reason of his death is he was pushed off a stool and hit his head, and he died.
Right.
So, you know, how true it is always going to be up for speculation, but
Mhm.
I do think it's quite possible. One thing that I will agree on, though, and I think most respected demonologists or even priests or exorcists that do this line of work will say the more that you are in this line of work, the more that your life force is consumed from you. And I'm 34. I have health issues that I shouldn't have. I'm not
Yeah.
equating it to demons or the preternatural, but I think that the more that you give yourself to helping people and dealing with these things, the more that you deal with the ramifications of it physically,
Interesting.
emotionally, mentally. And I'm not the only person that expresses that. So, there's a lot of people that we lost early in their life doing
Mhm.
this work,
Yeah.
and due to health issues that appeared out of nowhere, and they died from it. So, that's really up for debate or speculation, but
Yeah.
it's an interesting outlook because I do believe it to be true, and you can relate that to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and they call it
Mhm.
transference, right? When they're
Mhm.
Right.
sitting across somebody, they take on the emotions of that person, and it mentally and physically affects them
And
because the
just the
Yeah.
mind.
stress, just the stress itself, stress
Yeah.
will kill you just on it by
So
itself.
Yeah.
yeah, and
But
we deal
wow,
with a lot of
that's
stressful situations, a lot of
sure.
people in distress, right? So that does eat away at you to a degree.
Yeah, when you have, a family being terrorized or something that, that obviously weighs on you.
Take a toll on you for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. And I've
Wow.
gotten better handling it. Like when I first got involved, I took a lot. Like if I couldn't help somebody because I couldn't talk them to the light, like I couldn't lead
Yeah.
them down that dark tunnel, it did take a lot of emotion on me. Like, oh man, I failed them. But then I
Right,
started
right.
realizing, I didn't fail them. They didn't fail themselves either, but they so intertwined into this belief that, or this happening, that they can't escape from it. And sometimes you just unfortunately got to walk away because then it eats too much at you.
Yeah, sure.
So, through experience,
Yeah.
I've learned to walk away, and it's hard, of course, still to this day. But I can swallow it better now than I
Yeah.
used to be
Oh
able
yeah.
to.
Fascinating. James, man, we're gonna wrap it up here, brother. I appreciate you so much coming on and talking about it.
Yeah, it's been a
Super,
good
super
talk.
cool conversation. I was super excited to get you on because I've always wanted to talk about demons. So
Well, guys, thank you for having me on, and hopefully we can do a part 2 in the future.
Oh, definitely.
absolutely. You got
Yeah.
anything you want to plug or anywhere you're gonna be or
You can find me on Facebook, James Annitto, Annitto, jamesannitto.com, or easier to find my website, demonology.org.
Okay.
And if you're really into stress, please don't abuse it. But 401-808-7416, that's my personal number. You can reach out to me if you need help. I'm a phone call away or text message away. So those are the ways to get in contact with me.
Awesome.
James, man, thank you so much for spending some
Yeah,
time with us
thank you.
tonight.
Thank you,
I
guys.
appreciate it, brother. All right.